All right, guys, welcome back. I'm going to go through, I'm going to try to dive through these YouTube comments pretty quickly, and then I've got some asks to do. So I'll just get in as much as I can. Hope everyone's having a great week. Let's see. Um, I asked my mom, who is an RN, if Beth could be deaf because of her head wound, and she doesn't believe it would affect her hearing. And if it did, it would only be one ear, so that would not make her deaf. But I definitely feel like she could know ASL for another reason. I believe Daryl learned it for a bigger purpose. Okay, good to know. Thank you. I've never, I don't know, I guess it's the same thing with blind. I just don't see them bringing her back completely deaf or completely blind. I think that would be too complicated. But yeah, good to know that there's medical because we do know that they consult medical professionals about the injuries and things. So they have probably taken that into account. So thank you for sharing that. His ASL with the Southern accent. I love that little tidbit from Connie. I never saw them together, but I also never thought about him learning ASL for a bigger purpose. Interesting. It really is, huh? Okay. Wow, I actually thought this episode was a little bit light on the symbolism, so there's lots to dive into here. I definitely picked up on the water, though, that's for sure. Can I just say, I'm surprised that they drove another huge nail in the Carol coffin. Like it's not even questionable whatsoever that that has been firmly shut down. Agreed. Agreed. Let's see. I have not read through these. I hope, let's see. I never thought it needed a coffin, but I can see folks insisting it's not the case. I mean, I never shipped Daryl and Carol and have never really seen it, but I can imagine carolers finding reasons that it hasn't been nailed shut in case I was confusing. I get it. They were still doing that last week because they saw Valentina as giving them validation. Um, that there was something there for someone to comment on, and then Valentina immediately took that statement back in this episode. So I think a lot of them are finally taking the hint that the writers are just not and never were going to go there. Agreed. Agreed. And it's, I mean, they could have done this at any time. It's just interesting that they're doing it now. I mean, before they didn't, I know that TDers get frustrated about this. They didn't want to alienate the audience if they didn't have to. And by they didn't have to, I mean that they weren't doing a long-term love interest for Daryl back then. And I know that that frustrates some TDers because we wish that they would have done this a long time ago so we didn't have to deal with all of the negativity, right? But I do understand why they made that decision. You know, from a business standpoint, there's no reason to alienate your audience until you absolutely have to. Well, now we've reached the point where they absolutely have to because they need to shut it down because Daryl's getting a different love interest. So they're prepping people for it. So yeah, anyway, great comments here. Oh, definitely. The dark ship, at least on Tumblr, has been very insistent that because other TV shows have had characters shut down relationship questions before, clearly that means that's also what Carol and Daryl are doing too. I have long said that MMB could knock on their front doors, tell them herself that it's never going to happen, and they still wouldn't believe it. Yep, very true, pretty much. Um, yeah, I mean, them specifically putting it in the show is a big deal because let's say the ending to this is Daryl ends up alone, but finds fulfillment in surrogate fatherhood, something I've tossed around a lot lately. There's no reason to specifically shoot down the Carol ship in that case. You could just leave the nature of their relationship ambiguous forever, which is kind of what I just said, right? They didn't want to do it before because they didn't need to, and they if they weren't giving him a love interest, that's what Nostalgic is saying here, then they wouldn't still need to do it. The fact that they have now shot it down twice means Daryl is going to be with someone by the end of this. 100%. I'm with you. Very, very good. Let's see. Anybody else? Sorry, didn't mean to give you guys whiplash. Anybody else feel like it was more of Daryl finding Beth than Justina, who is a Beth proxy, and that his on a big it's probably supposed to be he's on a big journey to find her. Definitely a lot of foreshadowing there. Like, wouldn't it be so cool if Daryl finds a big lead of Beth being alive and out there somewhere in Barcelona, and Justina goes back with Path and they tell Carol and Daryl that Daryl went out looking for your friend Beth, like after Daryl and Path defeats El Alcazar. But then again, Daryl would not want to leave Carol in the hands of Fayday, who's just horrible. I might be reaching LOL, but I was so hopeful for the season. But after the review, I just don't know what to believe anymore or to keep holding out hope for the season. But either way, I'm just happy for any of the two last seasons and that she's coming back. Also, I would love it if Daryl finds her journal in Barcelona. Daryl's big lead to Beth and something he can keep a hold of when he's losing hope, trying to find her hopefully next season, like Daryl, come get your girl. Yeah. Sorry, I read through that really fast. I was going to say something about the beginning. Oh, I know what it was. Okay. So I totally did not connect this and one of my fellow theorists, I want to say it was Galadriel Jones, but if it wasn't, forgive me, one of them brought up that we very specifically saw fog at the beginning of Alone. And I had not thought to connect that. So, you know, at the end of this episode, we just see Daryl driving his motorcycle into the fog. I need to go back and watch it. I want to go back and watch this scene, and I haven't had a chance this week. But um, at the very beginning of Alone, it wasn't around Daryl and Beth. It was around Maggie, Sasha Bob. And remember, they were fighting walkers, but it was foggy and they couldn't see anything. And the thing that's interesting about that is that the two things in that episode, the two different storylines, are correlated. That was the way that it was set up purposefully. So all of the stuff that's happening with, you know, Maggie, Sasha, Bob can be applied to Beth and Daryl, just not right then in the present necessarily. So I thought that was a really interesting connection that he went into the fog, and we saw that fog around Maggie, Sasha, Bob, and I feel like that could be a connection. Like as soon as she said that, I didn't think of that, but as soon as she said it, I went, "Oh, that just totally rings true to me that that's a connection." So him going into the fog, I feel like it is a symbol of he's heading in to wherever he's going to find Beth, whatever's going to lead him there. The other thing I will say is that it's actually taken a lot longer than I would have thought to get through the storyline. I kind of assumed that everything, including you know, Justina being taken and Daryl heading off to find her, was going to happen in the first couple of episodes. And here we're in episode 5 and he's just leaving to find her. I mean, we've got 2 more episodes. We'll see how it goes, but I almost feel like, because especially they said that this is going to be a season 3, season 4 arc, they may not resolve this in any way, shape, or form for season 3. And I don't just mean Beth and Daryl. I mean, what if he doesn't bring Justina back this season? Maybe he will. And we did see her, I believe, the actress on his bike. So that does suggest that he brings her back. But I'm just saying, what if they don't resolve this at all this season? You know, I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. So I understand. I've had a few people tell me that they're feeling like they're losing hope, and I get it. But like I always say, and like it has already been said in one of the comments that I read, he's going to end up with somebody, right? And everything they've been telling us, everything they've been talking about, everything they've been pointing us to, everything is suggesting that it's going to be her. So until I know differently that his love interest, his long-term soulmate is somebody else, I'm still here for it. I'm not giving up yet. Okay. Thank you so much for your comment. I'm from Spain, so I got what Roberto mentioned from his accent. The subtitles are wrong. He said ribbons. In Spanish, the ones the pigs wear to choose the girl that goes to the ofrenda. I hope this helps. Yes, thank you. I had a couple of people send me that. Yeah, so it said ravens in the subtitles, and when he said ribbons with his accent, it sounded similar enough that I didn't think it was a different word. So thank you so much for telling me that. It makes much more sense that it was ribbons and not ravens. So you understand why I was confused. I was like, where have there ever been ravens in this season? There were not. That was just the subtitles trying to confuse us. So yeah. Um, let's see. I also wonder about the beautiful bush of blue hydrangea in the background. They make sure that the whole scenery looks like desert and there's a drought, but we have the very plant that needs a lot of water to survive. Is it only a symbol in this one episode? I don't know. Interesting. I will have to go back and look at that. I hadn't even noticed that. So, I mean, if it's purposely placed and this plant doesn't usually grow in the desert, then yeah, I would say that it's definitely a symbol. Um, so yeah, let me come back to that. I'll look at that. Um, some sort of love triangle between the man and the dead wife. I can't remember their names. Talking about the desert thing. Do you mean Antonio and Fede, I assume? Um, I don't know. Great deep dive into the symbolism. I didn't pick up on a lot of these. In general, I thought the episode was visually stunning and fun to watch, but there's not much going on that's moving the overall plot forward. On the surface, it seems like a bunch of filler, but if I look at it from a foreshadowing and callback perspective, there's a lot going on there. Agreed. Yeah, agreed. For such short seasons, I don't know how you managed to have a filler episode. And this was definitely seemed like that, even if it was enjoyable overall. But yeah, symbolism wise, it was a pretty big episode, and most people just aren't picking up on the symbolism other than us. Yeah, and I do think I think it does have to do with things that haven't happened yet. So, like you said, it's a foreshadow, it's symbolism. Like I said, the leprosy could be sort of a type of the virus itself and have to do with something with the cure. And I think we'll understand that more later down the road. Um, Let me just flood your comment section once again. Haha, I watched this episode at like 2 in the morning, so a lot of stuff immediately forgot about. When Daryl calls Carol a liar, it felt significant at this point because they brought that up very pointedly in 301 as well about how Daryl could never lie to Carol. And here he is telling her lying is her talent, basically. I do think we are going to get Carol lying about something significant to Daryl. Either something new in this season or the next, or something that's happened in the past, or something she's hid from him. Like maybe someone did come back, aka the radio convo in season 1, but for whatever reason, she's hiding it. It does seem like they're pointing to that, so I would agree with you there. And on the flashbacks, we now have a truck that's early 1980s GMC model. The story Daryl tells about his mother dying is he went out to play with kids on their bikes because he could do that when Merle wasn't around. They see the smoke and the sirens and are all excited to go see what's going on, only to find that it's his mother had died in the trailer from a lit cigarette in bed. We also hear the story in his childhood about how he was lost alone in the woods for an extended period of time and no one came to look for him. Yeah, for sure. I don't know what this, let's see, I don't know what it means, if anything, but I was struck by how Antonio worded it when he responded about Maria. He didn't say she was my wife. Instead, he said she was Roberto's mother. And I wondered if he didn't want to call her his wife in front of Fede. It might be nothing, but I did notice it during the scene. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point. Yeah, it is. They're just weird about it. They are. Every time they talk about her, or every time either of them, Antonio or Fede, thinks about the past or anything like that, they just both get really like stoic and they seem sad, like crestfallen, and we just don't really know why. So yeah, I don't know why he called her Roberto's mother. I mean, it really could be that they just never got married, but still, you would think he would call her his girlfriend or his partner, or you know what I mean? So yeah, that is odd. That's a really good point. I don't know. We'll have to revisit that once they finally give us the background for these two. I think the picture is of 3 seagulls fishing over the sea, and that's the sun reflecting on the surface of the water. Interesting. I don't know if those 2 died out of thirst, because wouldn't that just turn them into walkers? I think they've been wounded and left there to die. Oh, you mean the skeletons? Okay. Yeah, that could be. Even being wounded and left to die would turn into walkers. This means that they are very old skeletons that died prior to the virus being a thing. So yes, they could have died of thirst. That's also true. I don't know. I always see things more malignant than they are. So this is just kind of a conversation here. We're very myopic about things. Yes, I find myself invested in the smallest details that usually don't lead to anywhere, or thinking that things are darker than they actually are. And it's TWD's fault. It's definitely. Yeah, well, the other thing is, though, that with them just being skeletons, we can't really see what the injuries are. I don't know, unless, if there was like a knife injury, sometimes you can see that on the bone. But for the most part, because there's no flesh left, we don't know what the injuries are. So it could be that someone really did kill them and put them down so they wouldn't turn into walkers, and then just over time, all of the flesh either got picked away by animals or rotted away, or whatever the case is. So lots of possibilities there. Interesting conversations though, you guys. Let's see. I think I did most of these. I don't know if they're seagulls, but actually Galadriel Jones had something to say about this. And she thinks it's a whooping crane. And it does look a lot like that. Let's see. The black markings around the head, wings, and feet feel telltale. I also asked the intern, that's what we're calling AI right now, what's going on with this painting, and it just said that it looks like typical mid-century American train art. Like literally, this was the whole vibe when trains were cool. The paintings themselves were just to have this vaguely exotic Oriental vibe, but also to focus on like just this sort of generic environment, environmental settings and objects. The whooping cranes specifically would have been a common subject because they are a strong symbol of the rise and fall of the American frontier. So that actually really vibes with the whole Wild West thing they're going for, right? Whooping cranes are endangered, and they are one of two species of crane that are actually native to North America. This is a deeply American symbol, to be sure. Basically, in the post-World War II era, the cranes were so endangered that they almost became extinct. But through conservation efforts, they managed to make a comeback, and now almost 1,000 exist in the wild, mainly in Wisconsin, migrating to Florida in the winter or far northern Canada, and wintering on the Gulf Coast of Texas. Both are oddly important settings in TWD, meaning Florida, Canada, Texas, right? Um, let's see. I think, yeah. So we saw, she's just saying where they are. Texas because of fear. And then we saw Florida in Tales of the Walking Dead in the Anthony Edwards episode. And he played a conservationist stationed in the dead zone far in the future in Florida, where it seems that a lot of dead have been herded. Anyway, artists in the Midwest and South especially made a lot of art of these cranes in the mid 20th century because they were symbols of resilience, migration, and rebirth. I just thought it was really interesting, as obviously there are a lot of really important themes here. The near extinction coaxed into a resurgence, yeah, which is sort of a resurrection, right? The settings and just the sheer Americanness of this bird we're seeing in Spain. And then she just basically says that she really thinks this could be the same kind of bird we see in the picture in 509. Um, but the presence of the American flag and the fire and the dog and the mysterious man all make this very weird and intriguing to me, alongside the endangered crane or very rare ghost bird. So yeah, I think that's about what I have. I think I'm going to call it there, and we will do our asks in the next video. But yeah, really great comments. You guys are picking up some great details, and I love that you're having conversations in the comments. And yeah, I will look into a couple of those that I wasn't sure about and get back to you. And I will get one more video out before Sunday, which will be the ask. So I will just talk to you then. Have a good one.